Break it down.
And this turnaround for the B7, I'm going from the fifth to the minor third to the major third. And to go from the B7 to the A7, I go chromatically with a sweep. Go on the fifth degree of the scale and grabbing the ninth. Once I hit the ninth, I'm doing 2 upstrokes, up, up. And just sliding down in half steps. Bending a half step on the 13th of the A7. Again with the minor third to the major third of A. And then when it goes back to the 1 chord E7, I do the same thing. Minor third to the major third of that chord. Now I'm doing 6 intervals within the E mixolydian and trying to get a little snap. I'm doing hitting it with a pick with the right hand and then snapping with the middle finger. I get a little skin underneath the string and snap it up. Then it goes back to the 5 chord. So we have for A7, E7, and the same with B7. Form is generally 12 bars long, and the turnaround would be the last 4 bars, kind of setting up tension to come back to the 1 chord again. There's generally only 3 chords, although there are many variations and many variations of the form as well. Sometimes blues are 16 bars, sometimes it's an oddball thing, but for the most part it's 12 bars, and I'm doing the series all in the same key of E, and then you can transpose them to other keys as you need it. So the 1 chord is going to be E7, dominant chord. The 4 chord, if you go up 4 steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, would be A. And the 5 chord, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, would be B7, 4 chord A7, 1 chord E7. The turnaround is a good place to add tension, whether you're just hanging on one note or bending higher and higher and higher or getting louder and louder or adding some altered tones to do your altered chords or diminished scales or all kinds of wacky stuff. This section is for people that might not know anything about music theory or the mechanics of music. You might be a great player. You might be able to take off songs from records great and already play in a band. But when I start talking in this riff series about numbers, like the first, the third, the fifth, the flat five, the minor third, the flat seven, it all comes from a scale. If I'm playing a major scale, like A major Ionian mode, it's all numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And 8 becomes 1 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So if I've got 1, 2, 3, and I'm talking about a flat third, then this third will go down a half step. If I'm talking about a 7, a flat 7 would be a half step lower. Same with the 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Flat 5 is going to be a half step lower. Or a sharp 5, half step higher. When I talk about an arpeggio is just a chord, really, played one note at a time. So if I have an A major 7 chord, and I play it one note at a time, that's an arpeggio. Striking it all together is a chord, separate is an arpeggio. If I'm going to play an E minor 7 flat 5 arpeggio, here's an E minor 7. I'm going to flat that 5. Sometimes when I talk about bending, I'll go by steps. So half step bend, if I'm going to go from here, you want to make sure not to overbend and do a whole step or somewhere between a half step and a whole step. So it's a good idea when you're practicing bends to play the note that is your target first, because you get that in your ear and then bend up until you hear it. Sometimes I'll get into a minor third bend. Sometimes the bends are just very subtle. I'm not even thinking half step or whole step. I'm just thinking of making some kind of movement on the string. Some of the techniques I'll be talking about are sweeps. If I have 3 notes that are lined up on a string, or even 2 notes, I'm going to just take an A major triad for this example. Rather than the right hand going down, up, down, if I sweep it, it means my right hand is going all downstrokes in the same direction. And there's a kind of a subtle angle change in my hand where, check out the right hand if I'm doing alternate picking. If I'm sweeping, if I'm doing upstrokes, I'll angle it the other way slightly. When I talk about double stops, it just means 2 notes at the same time. So, like, sometimes I will bend into double stops. Like I'm going to bend the C to D and grab this G. A reverse bend means that you do the bend first and then let it drop. So if this is my target note, I'll bend up to that first, and then I don't pick until it's already bent and let it drop. That was a half step bend. And a lot of times when I bend, this thumb is going to be over the top to help me grip. If I'm going to be doing some stretches, the thumb is dead center in the back of the neck. Because if your thumb is up here, it really constricts your movement. But if your thumb's in the back, you can get a lot bigger spread.